And
Yeah, pretty busy with EWBA conferences upcoming.
oh
But
yeah,
yeah. All right. So let's get started. Good evening, dear all. We are so excited to see all of you joining EWB Thursday webinar series. And as we call it investment time, we believe that this is investing your time into your professional um, development and learning from experts from the field. And we are very happy today to do another webinar with Mitchell Bradford Jr. So EWB honor member of 2025, and he's also just doing this great job this year. Yes, and we will be happy to see him again as EWB honor member in 2026. And today he's going to share about a very interesting topic, which is about giving writing feedback when, where, and how. Because in his previous webinar, he talked about how to give feedback, speaking feedback. And that was quite interesting because he brought also his own experience from China, from working with different students around the globe, and that was really great and insightful. And for those of you who don't know our speaker, let me share some words about him. Mitchell R. Bradford Jr. is an EAP instructor and teacher trainer based in China. Hailing from Arkansas, southern USA, he holds degrees in foreign languages, Southern Arkansas City, and TESOL University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China, along with a Delta. Mitchell's teaching experience ranges from kindergarten to university, and he has trained teachers of each level of education. He has worked at transnational tertiary programs in China for several years, as well as taught in schools and universities in the US and at an orphanage, shelter, and school in Guatemala, along with being a virtual educational educator for a Ukrainian university. In that capacity, he has worked with local teachers to introduce innovative teaching techniques and theories. He has taught academic writing, public speaking, academic reading strategies, PE courses, intercultural communication, Spanish, French, and coached football. Mitchell is currently conducting doctoral studies in TESOL at the University of St. Andrews with a focus on the challenges and coping strategies of English teachers in Asia, along with teacher training and development. His research has been relating to EAP, AI, virtual education, and intercultural communication, for which he has been able to publish some articles in English and Spanish. By the way, he also published some of his articles in EWB newsletter. That was really great. And Mitchell has led teacher training workshops and presented research throughout much of the world. He also coaches mentors and teachers. And with great pleasure, I'm giving the floor to our speaker today. And dear all, please stay active to ask your questions in the chat box. And those who are viewing us on Facebook, please don't hesitate to ask your questions about the topics to our speaker today. And over to you, Mitchell. Thank you so much.
thanks. Okay, you guys, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks so much. But yeah, cool. Today we're looking at when, where, how giving writing feedback because sometime, what, maybe a month or two ago, I think it's about that. I did one about speaking. So today we're gonna look at writing. There's gonna be a bit of overlap between them in terms of like techniques and useful things. But then we'll get into giving writing feedback in depth. But yeah, so if y'all don't know me, my name is Mitchell, and a little bit about me. There's my IG on the side if you guys want my Instagram. I'll share my other social media and whatnot later. But yeah, if you guys want my materials, whatever, or have questions, you can always message me, and I'll be happy to share anything. But cool. So I'm from New Annenberg, Arkansas, in the south of the U.S., down there where that green dot is. I'm currently teaching EAP at Ocean University in China, and, yeah, and I'll see if they want me to train teachers. But yeah, I'm also doing my doctorate in TESOL at the University of St. Andrews, which is pretty cool. And there's my email if you guys want my email. The slides are usually big enough, like too big, so I have to use my Gmail. But fine. Just get in touch if you guys have questions or want some materials or whatever. I'll be happy to share. Okay, so let's talk about what we're doing today. So we're going to start off with issues that we encounter when giving writing feedback. Then we're going to look at implicit versus explicit feedback, materials and ideas to help with giving feedback, and then techniques to help out with that. And this time we're going to be specifically looking at them in terms of writing feedback. And then we'll do a quick summary after some practice. Okay, so first thing, you guys can unmute or we can use the chat box. But what are some issues that we face, that you face when you give feedback on students' writing? So, what are some issues that you have found or issues that you encounter? We can talk, we can use the chat box, whatever you guys want. Yeah, so there's no standard writing rubric. Lots of places will make their own. You can find some online, like IELTS, TOEFL, or whatever, those kind of international tests. But then you need to probably adapt it to your own context and stuff. And that's also one thing that's quite interesting. Like if you do like me and you switch universities like every year or two, you have to adapt to a different rubric every so often, which I think that's okay. You get to learn something new. Writing feedback takes a lot of time. Yeah. First of all, you have to read everything, and then you have to try and write it. Schools might not require feedback or not care about feedback really. Like, yeah. Usually they require you to do students to do writing for assessment, but what's the point of doing something if we don't tell them how to get better? Cool. All right. If we see anything else, we'll talk about it. But yeah. So here's some ideas that I have and stuff. So one thing is, when do we get feedback? So one thing is, okay, so with writing feedback, do you write all the feedback on the piece of paper and then give it back to them? Or do you just give them some ideas and then you just kind of talk to them about it in class? Do you do that in one-on-one or do you just do general whole class feedback? Okay. Again, that kind of goes with how to give it. So do you want to, we have another comment. How to give feedback and encourage without discouraging. Yeah, that comes up later. But yeah, so how to give because we don't want to discourage them and stuff. Okay. How much? Because like you will have some students that they write and like everything is wrong. Do you correct every single thing that is wrong? Some people do, but really that's not the best way to do it. Who gives it? So is the teacher the only one who can give feedback to the students, or are we going to try out peer feedback where the students give each other feedback? What we talked about earlier just popped up in the chat box, correcting and helping them without discouraging them. So yeah, that could be kind of a thing. Will the students understand your feedback? First of all, will they understand it? Second, if they do understand it, will they actually listen and will they be able to improve? So there's sometimes a gap between telling them what they did wrong and actually helping them improve. Um, because the idea is like we don't just want to tell them why they're wrong, we want to help them get better and make sure they do that. And then also there's a thing about meeting expectations. So some universities will have certain expectations of what feedback should look like. Some schools will have that too. as well as the students. Some students will have certain expectations of what their feedback should be, like how much they should get and what it should look like exactly. All right, now we're going to get into implicit versus explicit feedback. If you came to my speaking session last time, like about a month ago or so, I dived into this a little bit. But implicit feedback is pretty much where you kind of urge the students to fix their own mistakes. Okay, you hint at the issue, you kind of hint that there's a problem, and you try to help them find it and fix it themselves. Okay. Explicit is where you fix it for them. Like you fix the mistake for the students directly. Okay. This was very direct, and you kind of directly say what the problem is, and you fix it. Now, some people have different preferences and stuff. Now, what it is these are both quite all right. I like implicit because I teach university, so I'm dealing with, 18, 19, 20-year-old students. So they are smart enough that they can try and figure out problems by themselves. If you're working with younger students or also students who are like at a very low level in English or whatever language it is you teach, you probably want to do more explicit just because maybe they lack that cognitive ability to be able to fix stuff by themselves so easily, or they lack the language ability to understand that there's an issue and know how to fix your mistake. Okay. So, like, I would not try to tell my daughter implicitly to fix her grammar because she's just 5. No, she's 4. She'll be 5 in June, but still. So, yeah, both of those have advantages, disadvantages. All right, now on to things that can help us give feedback. Um, we'll look at the feedback sandwich, which we looked at last time. Rubrics. So, last time we looked at speaking rubrics. This time we're going to look at writing rubrics and checklists. So, checklists are very, very simple. All right, now the feedback sandwich. If y'all don't know what this is, the feedback sandwich is kind of an idea where whenever you get feedback with writing or speaking, anything, you want to start off with something positive. So tell them that, they did very well, they did a good job with this. Maybe they tried to use some advanced vocabulary. They didn't have very many punctuation problems or grammar problems. Okay, you start off with something positive. Then you go into not the negative feedback, but constructive feedback. So this is where you start talking about the things that can be better. So, for example, like they need to pay attention to capitalization. They need to pay attention to using clauses and how to do those correctly. Okay, don't just say that wrong. All right. And then you end with more positive feedback. Okay. So the idea is like you say something good, here's something that was not very good and ways to make it better. And then you end with another positive thing. Okay, great. Same thing here, but in a different infographic. So start off positive, constructive feedback when is where you identify areas that can be improved and sources of concern. And don't make it bland. Don't just say like your grammar is bad, your spelling is bad. You want to give actual advice and suggestions or kind of hint at how to make things better. Don't just say that they're wrong. Try to actually help them get better. And then end with something positive as well. Okay, now let's talk about a rubric. Here is a rubric which I made for the university that I was working at maybe about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. But this is a rubric that we had that I'm pretty sure that I made it and I helped other people with it. But in terms of writing a paragraph, so this is just for writing one single paragraph at the university level. These are freshmen in China at like kind of an English speaking university. But with their paragraph, we looked at the topic sentence, supporting sentences, which are, the middle of the paragraph where you share your ideas and kind of, explain your ideas and elaborate. And then your concluding sentence. Okay. And then we looked at cohesion, how the ideas, match together and they flow. vocabulary, and grammar. Okay, great. And then we made this quite easy. So each of those are worth different points. Topic sense and clue sense are 5 points. 5 points. Supporting, cohesion, vocab, and grammar are out of 10. So in total, that is 50 points. All right. And that's how many you can get for the paragraph. Now, we decided on three kind of levels for this rubric, and then you can adjust this how you want. Some people want five, some people do seven. We went with three, just because three was quite easy. And then inside each of these, we have how many points would go in these areas. Okay, so and then we have poor, which means essentially a fail. You failed you failed overall. Fair and good, which is okay, not too bad, and very good, which is towards the higher end. Okay, and then these numbers here are the different weights for this. So like supporting sentences is worth 10 points. So if you did poor, you're from 0 to 5. Pretty good is 68. Very good is 9 and 10. So pretty much you have if we think like the US way of thinking, the very good is your A, fair and good is like your B or C, poor is where you're into the D and failing into Fs. Okay, so definitely the Fs. Okay, great. Then we also had our points off at the bottom. For example, if something's off topic, like if the students are supposed to write a paragraph about, hmm, let's say advantages or disadvantages of something, but then they write a paragraph about their weekend or their vacation. That's off topic. You get a 0. Sorry. And then we also have a word limit. So if they're over the word limit or they're under the word limit, they get 5 points off for each 10% over or under. Because we want to make sure they're within the word limit by 10%. So most universities will tell you write something like 500 words plus minus 10%, which pretty much means that you can go from 450 to 550. Okay, cool. But yeah, now one thing, if we want to get into how rubrics are made and stuff, um, that'd be quite fun as well, eh? But with each of these, they do all kind of like these different things here are kind of on a scale, okay? So many errors, some errors, very few, if any, errors with spelling, okay? Same thing with your ideas. How well organized are they? Not very well organized, okay organized, very well organized, okay? So these are kind of like on a spectrum from good, not good for each of these. And it's kind of just a copy paste across here this way. Okay. Now, also, another thing that you will see is that each thing has a couple of categories essentially. So what you do is like, okay, let's say for vocab. So vocab will look at spelling errors, word choice, the use of contractions, because contractions like aren't, weren't, I'll, those are not used in academic language. Do they use advanced or complicated vocab? What kind of, do you have word form errors? Do you have clarity or is clarity lost? So all these different things fall under vocabulary. So that means that we're looking at all these things for this area. Okay. Now, what you do is like if they have lots of spelling mistakes, but they don't use any contractions. They try to use some advanced vocabulary. They're pretty clear throughout. There's no real word choice issues. So what you do is like if you have some students, this happens a lot, but they kind of get all over the place with these different categories. And what you do then is you kind of try to meet in the middle. So we see like, for example, this one's kind of leaning this way, but it also has some stuff this way. So I would say that might be like maybe a 7. Okay. or maybe an 8. Okay, they did some stuff very, very well, but I mean, they had lots of spelling mistakes. They only tried to do some vocab. This might be a 7 or 8. And then what you do is you have a meeting with your other teachers who are grading this, and you guys do norming, which is where everybody grades the same essay and gives it the same at the same time and see if you guys give it roughly the same grade. All right. But that is a rubric. I see lots of messages in the group. Okay, cool. Nothing important. Okay, so that's a rubric. We will use a rubric in a bit. Now, there's also a checklist. Now, some universities like using checklists because some places have lots and lots of students and they just do it really, really quickly. I really hate checklists. Um, we'll get into why later. But like here's one with like, primary school students. They start all the sentences with capital letters, yes or no. All sentences have punctuation, yes, no. Spaces between words, yes, no. It's easy to understand. The handwriting is very good. So this is really simple, and the idea is like you give quick and easy feedback to the students. So this can be really good if it's like not a major assessment, if it's just like something really fast and it's not for a major grade, and also if you have like lots of students to work with. All right. Now this is a kind of checklist from a university that I worked at, oh boy, maybe 5 years ago. Um, but this is what one of their checklists looked like. So the word count, the whole plus minus 2%, 10% thing, the idea about the paragraph, how do you organize your vocab and your grammar, and how and how you do your formatting, which is just academic style, how it's supposed to be written with line spacing and font size. And then they give you three things with a sad face, which means, nah, you didn't do very well. You did okay, you did good. And then here's where the teachers can leave comments. And some places will require the teachers to write 150 words in worth of comments to the students. Okay. So yeah, this is what a checklist looks like at the kind of first year of university level, at least at the kind of universities I work at in China. Now, I don't really like these because I don't think that is as helpful as a rubric and actually going through and marking the paper for the students. But this is really good if you have lots of students and you want to try and make stuff easy for the teachers. Usually what happens is if stuff is easy for the teachers, it might not be the best thing for the students. And what's the best thing for the students usually requires more work of the teacher. So we have to find a balance. Okay, now in terms of actually giving feedback, like on their paper and stuff, there's a couple ways to do this. So there's indirect feedback, there's what's called coded feedback, there's reformulation, metalinguistic feedback, comment-based feedback, and visual feedback, which I quite like. I quite like visual. Okay, now let's look at indirect. Now, these are all different, but you can kind of mix them together. Okay, you don't have to just use one. Like I will usually do indirect and visual. I'll mix those up. I'll use those together. Okay, now in terms of indirect, indirect means uncoded. There's no code, there's no abbreviation. It's just very indirect. So the teacher indicates that there's an error. So the teacher says that shows that there's a problem with the student's writing and does not provide the correct form of it, does not correct it. It encourages students to think. They have to self-correct. They need to develop their editing skills. Usually, this is where you underline or circle or highlight mistakes. Okay. Or you might make a mark in the margin. The margin is like on the side of the paper. So you might make like a question mark to show that you don't understand something. I usually do colors. We'll get into my color scheme later. But here's an example. So he go to school every day. Of course, we know there's a problem. So what we do is we just circle it, okay, and give it back to the student. The student knows that because it's circled, something's wrong with it, and they have to try to fix it themselves. So the idea is then that kind of helps the students notice the problem. It's been highlighted in some way, and they should be able, we want them to fix it themselves, which fosters autonomy and reflection. Okay, great. Then there's also coded feedback. Now, coded feedback is when you use a symbol or abbreviation to indicate the type of error, not necessarily the answer, not necessarily like the right way to do it, but just to show what kind of error there is. These are quite common. So common codes are like VT for verb tense, WW for wrong word, SP for spelling, okay? Art for article, that is an article issue, P for punctuation, okay? So we can use that same example again with um the he go to school every day. We would just do a VT to show that there's a verb tense. Wait, no, it's not verb tense. It's is it tense? It's not tense. I'm sorry, I forgot. But yeah, it's not tense because it's in the present. It's just verb, it's subject verb agreement. It's SVA. So that'd be SVA, subject verb agreement. So because it should be he goes to school every day. So the purpose of that is guide the student to identify and correct the specific type of error, but they still have to think through the correction themselves. They know what is it exactly. So like for this one, it's not verb tense. Huh, sorry, it's SVA, which is subject verb agreement. But still. All right, now reformulation. The reformulation is where the teacher just gives the correct form directly to the student on their paper. Okay, so he go to school every day. We just cross it out and write goes. He goes to school every day. Very direct. So it's very clear and efficient. You're just telling the student the right answer, and they, hopefully will see it, they understand it. It makes sure the student sees the right answer immediately, like they see it right away. Now, that's really the best for beginners when people are first starting and when you're focusing on accuracy. So, for example, lots of schools in China focus on accuracy of grammar and spelling and stuff, just because that's how the tests are set up. So they have to work on that stuff a lot. So that can be useful for that. I like trying to make the students figure out themselves. Okay, now for meta-linguistic feedback. Now this is where the teacher adds a rule-based hint rather than the answer. So you don't tell them what the answer is, what's the correct way of doing it. Here, let's get an example. So he goes to school every day, very easy. You just say, remember subject verb agreement. That's the SVA I was talking about. So, so remember subject verb agreement in the present simple. Okay. Or, really easy thing would be telling students to remember the past tense. Remember to use the past if you're talking about the past tense. But this one's SVA. Now, the purpose of this encourages reflection on grammar rules and helps them with deeper language awareness. Now, we also have commenting, which is where the teacher writes a short or kind of extended comments on the side, on the margins, or at the end of the text. So you give them more detail. So it could be something like check your tense, check your subject verb agreement, watch out for run-on sentences, try using more connectors, just giving them tips to look for what to look out for. So that provides guidance, and as well as, we can do praise with it too, direction for improvement. And it's not just focusing on grammar, not just surface level grammar. All right, now onto visual feedback, which is what I do a lot. That's where the teacher uses symbols or colors or formatting to highlight a problem. Now, symbols, we know you draw a picture. Colors, change colors. Formatting is like when you italicize, like to make the text kind of go sideways, or bold to show that there's a problem. Okay, so I like doing these kind of colors here. So whenever I get something from students, I will highlight stuff in yellow to show that it's a vocab problem. And I will highlight something in green to show there's a grammar problem. For me, green, G equals grammar. So that's how I do it. I don't know why I do yellow for vocabulary. I guess because vocabulary has a Y. But cool. So for me, yellow is vocabulary, green is grammar. We'll see this in a bit. Or you can highlight a whole sentence to show that it needs revision. Usually I will highlight like a whole sentence in gray to show that it's not clear, like I don't understand what they're talking about. Now, what this does, it helps with visual learners, because some people are really drawn to different colors and stuff or different visuals. It makes a pattern for easier to make it easier for errors to be noticed. So after your students, like if you do the whole yellow is vocab issue, green is grammar issue, um, I use kind of gold for cohesion problems. After you do that, the students will learn the color codes and we'll be able to pick it up easier to see what we're up to. Mhm. Okay, now we're gonna do a bit of work. It's not gonna be a group thing. Sorry. I wish it was. Maybe whenever I come out there in person. But for now, we're just gonna do it. Everybody's gonna do it on their own, and then we're gonna share answers and have a talk. Okay, so I'm gonna send you guys a paragraph. So I want you guys to give the following paragraph some feedback. I will also give you guys the rubric to give grades to it. Okay? And I'll give you guys maybe, let's see how we do with like 10-ish minutes. Okay. Maybe five. I'll check in out after five. Okay. Because it's a paragraph and I want you guys to practice giving feedback and stuff. But also want to see how you guys do it where, with like, do you want to do the codes? Do you want to do visuals, like changing colors and stuff? How would you give, and do you want to leave comments? How would you give feedback to this paragraph? Okay, now here is the rubric. I must stop sharing and throw it into our group chat if I can figure it out. Ooh, so many options. Okay, there we go. Back. All right, waiting for that to send. Okay, and that's the rubric, which we looked at earlier. And here is the student's writing. So I sent it in the Word document if you guys want to do that, but I'm also going to copy and paste it. It's too long. That's okay. I'll cut it in half. Still too long. Still too long. Where is half? Okay, let's go here. All right, there's the first half of the paragraph, second part, and third part. I had to do it in three parts. Okay. And while you guys are working on that, I am going to go back to sharing my screen. And okay, cool. And also because some people might not be on the Zoom thing, they might be on the Facebook thing. But here, I will let you guys take a picture of that. I'll give you a couple of seconds to take a picture of this if you guys want to, because next I'm going to switch to the paragraph, and that's where it's going to stay for a couple of minutes. So go ahead and take a picture of this. Five, four, three, two, one. Okay. Okay, and here is the paragraph from a student that I had like 2 years ago, I think. But cool. How would you give feedback to this? Okay. And let's work on this for about 5 or so minutes, and then we'll come back. All right, so about 5 minutes, and then I am going to go grab me some water. Okay, guys, so that was about 5 minutes. Now, I see a good bit of questions, but let's try and speed this up so we have time for questions because I know y'all got questions. Okay, cool. Now, what kind of things did you guys see, or does anybody want to talk about some feedback that they would give to this student? This is a first year university student. I believe this is their first, yeah, this is like the first semester. This is like their first month in university. So this kid's like 18, fresh out of high school in China. What are some things? Ooh, we have a good bit. Did somebody use AI? Because somebody wrote a lot. And it has bullet points. AI likes bullet points. Makes me suspicious. Now, also keep in mind to use the rubric. Okay? So yeah, there's punctuation stuff, structure stuff. Punctuation is really interesting in China because in China, you know how they type the Chinese characters when they put they call it dian, but dian is a period. When you type in Chinese, it makes a space for you automatically after the period. Of course, in English, you have to hit the space button. So that's why there's lots of spacing issues after almost every punctuation, period, commas, everything. There's lots of mistakes, huh? There's lots of errors. Yeah, okay. But then you can't just tell the student, hey, your paper has lots of errors. What can we do? By the way, I think you guys can upload, like if you do a screenshot or if you take a picture or whatever you did, I think you can upload it to the group chat, so we can see what other folks did. But also, if you want to unmute, you can talk to us about what you did. That'd be cool too. And also, yeah, there's a couple of spelling issues. One thing that's quite fun is if you open this in a Word document, like in Microsoft Word, here, let me show you, because I have mine open. It will point out a lot of these mistakes. And then, I'm wondering, why doesn't, or lots of foreigners when they come to China and stuff. So it looks like this. So you see all these little red lines, and pretty much this is all the spacing problems that we talked about. Spacing problem, spacing problem, spacing problem. If you just have Microsoft Word in English, it shows you this. But the thing is, in China, they don't really use a lot of, some people do, but the main thing they will use for typing is what's called WPS, and WPS is like a Chinese version of Microsoft Word, and it doesn't do this for you. Um, Even though like most universities will offer Microsoft Word for them, and they don't use it. They're so used to using a Chinese thing, or they just want their settings to be in Chinese. But a lot of stuff is just if you're gonna write in English or whatever language you're gonna write in, have your word or whatever that you write in set to that language because it will help you with these mistakes. It's the same if I write something in Spanish. If I change this to Spanish, it will help me with my Spanish mistakes. So it looks like that. Okay, great. Now, here I'll go. I think I saw a couple more comments. Spelling mistakes, grammar. Grammarly can help. Yes. So yeah, and then remember that this is like a first month student, so they don't know about, Grammarly or anything like that just yet. They just started. This is like their third week of university. Spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes. I believe we have somebody using AI to talk to us because it looks very AI-ish. I researched AI a good bit. But anyway, so I will go to the next slide, and that shows how I gave comments to the student. Or not comments, these are not my comments. These are my highlights. Um, so again, here's the original, and here are my highlights. And I only added one word. I added this word here. I added and because they did not have an and. So for me, with my students, they get used to it. But if it's written in red and highlighted yellow, that means I added it. Okay, so I gave them an extra word. Okay, Now, first question, what do the different colors mean? So, what is green? What's yellow? What's red? What's gold? What do we think about blue? And the kind of gray. Ooh, yeah, the gray. That was really interesting.
I
Now,
think
remember,
I think
yeah,
the green one is just, yeah, when there is mist space.
no. All right. So, if we look at the rubric, uh, spacing and punctuation are parts of grammar. Okay. And so then they also has highlighted as well. So all the green is grammar is stuff. Now grammar is, grammar issues, but also punctuation is a part of grammar, and the spacing around punctuation is included in that. That's how I do it. Some people argue that punctuation is something different, but really punctuation is grammar. So the green is for grammar. What else do we have? Thank you for talking. Somebody finally talked to me today. It scared me though. All right, let me go to the chat box.
Yeah, dear participants, please, I encourage you to speak up because, yeah, your opinion matters. Please.
Hi, can I talk?
Yeah, go for it, please.
So, yellow color is for spelling.
Yeah, so yellow's vocabulary issues, and vocabulary issues include spelling, word choice, word form, stuff like that. Awesome. Okay, now red. Aha, now red is not grammar. For me, red means delete. It means take this out. You do not need this. So Chinese students usually struggle with the or the. They will use it sometimes too much because in Chinese they don't have articles. They don't really have articles like we do in English. I'm guessing like Russian doesn't really either. I'm not sure about Tajik, but yeah. Okay, now gold. This gold is a cohesion thing. So I don't like that connecting word there. Now, blue was really fun because the student says the same thing in their concluding sentence as they say in their topic sentence. It's just a copy paste. Okay, national pressure reduction, industry quality improvement, reduced social pressure. They say the same thing twice in the topic sentence and including sentence. But what we want them to do is, paraphrase or rephrase it. So same idea in your topic including sentence, but different words. Okay, you don't just want to copy and paste. It shows that you have a limited vocabulary and that you can't, you have limited thinking if you can't do more of that. Now, what's the difference between labor and labor? This one's really fun.
Can I talk?
Ah, yeah, cool. So
I
like the
think it
difference,
is
yes.
it is
Mhm.
American and British English.
Yeah, cool. So both of them are okay because like this university was a Kiwi university, so it's from New Zealand, so they use kind of a British way of stuff. And I'm from the US, so I use American. But both of them are okay, but you have to use the same style throughout. You cannot mix American and British. You have to be just all the way British or all the way American with your writing. You cannot mix. So then again, somewhere else down here, they have labor force and they spelled it the American way. And of course, I'm American. I prefer the American way. Okay, sweet. So that's with my color scheme. Now, we you don't just want to give colors. It takes a while, but students will get used to the colors, and especially you have to tell them a couple times what it means. Usually at the end of the document, I will kind of give them like yellow equals vocab, green is grammar, gold is for cohesion, red is for delete, and then this stuff is linked to the rubric. Now let's move on to comments. Dark green? I don't think I have a dark green. Do I have a dark? Oh, you're talking about gold? Anyway, now in terms of comments, here are comments that I gave on the paper. They said changing population in China, changing is not wrong, but decreasing would be more accurate. Okay, so trying to be more accurate. This one here is comment on there. Good points. Remember the feedback sandwich. Good, but it's good, good points. However, you say reduced 3 times. Reduced will be reduced. Employment securities will be reduced. Education will be reduced. It's it's redundant. You're saying the same. It's repetitive. So it shows one, it's not very fun to read. Two, it shows you have a limited vocabulary. So I want to try and improve that. And then here, like this sentence and the sentence before it should be combined. All right. Now I'll speed up because we're about out of time. But in terms of how I would give grades to this student, that's how I would give grades to them. Remember now, this is the like first writing this student has ever done, probably, and like academically. Um, it's like their first month at university. So I would give them a 38 out of 50. Topic sentences is pretty good. Supporting sentences are okay. Concluding sentences, yeah, is a little bit worse than topic sentence because it's copy and pasted. Cohesion's okay. Vocab's okay. Grammar is quite all right. Just lots of spacing. The spacing, other than the spacing issues, there's only one grammar mistake, which is not too bad. Okay. So that's how I would grade that one. We would do this, spend time on this actually, but we don't have time because I want to get to y'all's questions. But yeah, maybe if I come out there in person, we can do this like live, and it's really fun actually. We'll do something different. But cool. And then also this thing where we design a class based on feedback. So the idea is like after you give feedback, after you mark the writing for the students, you kind of the next lesson after you get done with feedback, like preparing feedback, you make a lesson to help the students with those issues that they had. All right, and we're gonna skip this, but yeah, doing stuff like fill in the blanks, showing them, like give them like examples that have mistakes and try to have them fix the mistakes, have making students edit their own work in class, and you're there with them. That really helps out. And discussing the issues that they had spacing, and actually showing them how to make a space and why, and make sure they write in, like turn their keyboard to English and stuff like that. Okay, great. All right, so feedback. So here's our final word, and we'll go to questions. So feedback can be really difficult, but is needed for students. Um, we want to be positive and encouraging and constructive. You need to balance kind of between implicit and explicit, and this really depends, yeah, it's based on your students. All right. So if they're younger ones, if they're beginners, you want to be more explicit. If you get older ones who are more advanced, you want to be more implicit. You want to consider different techniques and methods, and you can mix things together. I do comments and like the color scheme. I don't do the coding very much. And you want to include examples and explanations of like what your codes mean, what your markings mean. And the most important thing is always think from the student's point of view. Think like a student. So if you're a student like in the first year of university, you just got off high school, what is going to help you with your writing? What's going to help you improve? Okay. And sometimes that might be a good bit of work for the teacher. So you need to find a balance. But if you look at your feedback and you have to think, is this going to be helpful or not? Okay, cool. All right, there are my socials. If you guys want to get in touch with me, there's my Facebook, my blog, my YouTube, my email. If you're into Orchid or LinkedIn, there's that. There's my IG. Here's my blah 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 WeChat. But cool. Thanks so much, you guys. We only have a couple minutes for questions. But cool, let's go.
Yeah, thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Great. I'm really impressed. Thank you so much. Like, everything that you shared are very helpful, are very useful, and also just, practically doable by any teachers.
Yeah. It'd
Yeah,
be really
so
cool if we can do this in person. But yeah,
yeah,
cool. I wanted to speed up so we
exactly.
can have questions.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so let's open the floor to questions and answers. So, if you have any questions, you can either unmute yourself or write a question in the chat box. So we'll make sure to address them to Mitchell tonight. Okay. All right. I saw one question. Yeah,
Yeah, I
there is a
saw
question. You
one.
see that? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
saw a couple. So I saw one
Mhm.
about the coding. So like the whole thing about okay, you like will the students know that VT is verb tense is SVA subject verb agreement? No,
Mm-hmm.
they won't. So what happens usually is either the teacher includes like a guideline thing to show them what it means, or it's like in a textbook. Like like one university was as one of the students' textbooks, it had a thing to help them identify the
Mm-hmm.
codes that professors use when giving feedback and stuff. So the thing is, it's the same thing with my color scheme. If I just give you yellow, green, red, you're not going to know what it means. But then I kind of tell you yellow is for vocab, green is for grammar, uh, like blue is like some other kind of mistake. But usually as well, like at the bottom of their like Word docs, like here, I would do something like do something like this. That should be an A. So I would add this on to show them like these issues are in this color
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to try
So,
and help them.
yeah, Mitchell, just is like color coding something that is commonly used? I mean, just by global teachers, or this is just only you using that, or what do you think?
I've seen some people do it. I know
Mm-hmm.
some people like some teachers are really bad about doing if it's in a Word doc, a lot of teachers will do the this thing here, the track changes, which is where
Mm-hmm.
like you kind of go in and like the teacher kind of fixes it. But then the idea is like it shows the students where the problem is, and the idea is like, okay, the student will be able to fix it themselves. No, they're
Mm-hmm.
not. The student's just gonna do accept all.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Which so I really hate that way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the color coding. I don't know where I picked that up, but that's just the way I work. I think the color coding is quite good for me. I know some people like if it's on paper, they will have students make sure the students do the line spacing wider, and then they will write under here, like draw a little symbol for space or something
Mm-hmm.
like do the coding stuff. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
some people like the coding, some people like the colors. I really like the colors. That helps me a lot, especially whenever you make your color scheme. But yeah, just different folks like different things.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I mean, just we have also question from Zumrad. She's asking, can we ask
Hmm.
students to check their mistakes themselves, giving them rubrics that you shared?
Oh yeah, no, totally. That's self-assessment. So with the rubric, you can give the students the rubric and ask them to check themselves. You can do peer feedback and stuff. But usually what happens is, if it happens with me, is very funny. You cannot find your own mistakes as well as somebody else can. Because usually whenever you're reading it, you think everything looks okay, or you don't identify stuff. I submitted a proposal to a journal and it got accepted. So I am going to get something published in a journal, and I made a mistake because I spelled vocabulary without a Y, and nobody caught it until after it got accepted. And I was looking at it later. I'm like, oh wait, that's a mistake. I made a typo, but nobody noticed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but yeah, you can try to have them use the rubric themselves if you want to. Usually what we do at the university is whenever we give students an assignment, we also include the rubric so they know how they will be graded, and then
Mm-hmm.
they can try and check it themselves. Students are smart now where they're able to throw their stuff into AI and use AI to kind of help them give them feedback as well. But usually AI will not grade the same as a teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. All right. So, dear all, if you have any mistake, I mean, just sorry, I'm talking about mistakes. Any questions, just let us know. Yeah. Okay. Roxana, please go ahead.
Appreciated the beginning Italy and you for making this webinar possible today. And now that I think that giving feedbacks are very important for our students, but sometimes some students take feedback as a criticism. And I want to know what are common mistakes teachers make while giving feedback. Thank you.
So common mistakes that teachers make while giving feedback? Was that your
Mm-hmm.
question? It's kind of
Yeah,
hard to
yeah,
hear.
yeah. I guess so.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So cool. So one thing teachers usually have a mistake with giving feedback is like let's go back to mine. One thing some teachers do is like they will just, and I really, really hate this. So here, so like this is the all the feedback I gave to that student. So I do my color codes that the students know what my different colors mean. I kind of highlight some stuff to give specific examples. And also here, this is how I give them their grade based on the rubric. And also I give like a little bit of detail about each thing. Like you have a clue sense, which is good, but you need to rephrase it. Let's go with grammar. You have a good range and accuracy of grammar. There's only like really one grammar mistake, but there's lots of issues with spacing, and there's one issue with tense. Some teachers will just give them this. They will just say you have a grammar problem, you have a vocabulary problem, but they don't show where that is. So I think that's not very helpful because then the student has to try to find it themselves, and it's very difficult. So that's why I like doing the colors because then it's highlighted to show where the problems are exactly, and that makes it easier for them to see. So I kind of do the comments and the colors together. But yeah, some people would just do this, but I don't think I think it's very helpful. Like, okay, you have a grammar problem, you have a vocabulary problem, like to show them where exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
And then okay, and then also it's like if you don't do that, if you just give them this, like oh you have a vocabulary problem, they're gonna ask you where. Where do I have vocabulary? Where do I have grammar problem? So with
Figure out
this,
yourself.
so like
How could they?
with this, you because you're reading it. So as I'm reading it, I'm highlighting stuff. And then the highlights help me do my grade as well and my comments.
Mm.
Um, and so it all kind
Yeah.
of goes together.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds great. Yeah. Thank you. We also have, I guess, one last question from Tahmina. Tahmina, please go ahead. Yeah. Tahmina, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, dear all. I'm very glad to see you and being here with you. And I have one question. You know that every Saturday we had the time for checking the home assignment and the individual works of students. And we teach for 2 or 3 groups. And every group have or has more than 30 students. How we should make our this checking the individual works and home assignments easier, and to my mind giving coded feedback takes a lot of time, and how to
Yeah.
make it easier.
Okay, cool. So now you said that you have, three groups of like 30 students, right? Is that right? So
Yeah.
like 90 different students. Okay, whenever I was doing this, I had 60 students, and then they wrote a paragraph. Now, sometimes, yeah, some people just have so many students that you cannot give this much depth. What some people do, like if you do have lots of students, then lots of people like to do the kind of rubric, or not the rubric, the checklist. So that can be quite easy. And then that kind of helps them pinpoint exactly what the problems are. So like you can make this for vocab, for grammar, for cohesion, for topic sentences, anything like that. And then you just show them like not good, okay, good. you don't have to do comments because like if you have so many students, you don't have time for comments unless but you don't want to work too much because then you'll have no time for yourself. And this is why teachers don't quit teaching. But what I do with even with the checklist thing, like as I'm reading it, if I see stuff, I will highlight stuff or circle stuff, and then I will do the checklist. Okay?
Oh, that's
So yeah,
why
the
I
main
give them
yeah.
comment. I comment their feedback. That's why.
Yeah, yeah. Like I would like to leave comments on everything, but if you have too many students, you can't have comments because you're gonna be working all day on the weekend too. So no,
Thank
yeah,
you
don't do
very
that.
much for your
No
recommendation. It
problem.
was
So you have
very
to
useful.
balance.
Yeah, thank you. Mitchell, just again, just maybe just a very quick question. To what
Cool.
extent your, this feedback giving to writing assignments has helped your students to progress? What has
I
changed? First of all, how it made easier your job, and second one, how it helped your students.
It helps a lot, especially with like some of the simple stuff with the spacing. So the idea is with the way that these are set up at university is students do a draft and then they do a final version. This helps a lot with the draft where you see like big differences in the grades. So like this first draft was a 38. If they fix all that, they're going to bump up to, 45. So it helps their grade improve. And then next time they write, they'll be able to look back to see what were the issues they had first time, to keep that in mind. So I think that helps out a lot. And yeah, and also what we do in class is like we have class time for students to work on their writing. If I do this much depth, they don't ask me as many questions. So that means I can go around more and help students who need help more versus all the students have questions. So if you pretty much the more work you do at first, the less work you have to do later. Um, if you don't do very much work at first, then also students are gonna have lots of questions and they're gonna be very confused and they're not gonna know what to do next. So you want to try to balance that. But yeah, usually the students do quite well.
Great. Thank you so much. And we also have positive comments and also some other comments from some teachers saying that, yeah, teachers have traditional methods of assessment and because of the system, students become more accustomed to receiving grades rather than detailed feedback. It also, yeah, happens in some schools. Anyway, thank you so much, dear all, and our great, yeah, appreciation to Mitchell for a very wonderful webinar. I enjoyed it myself, and I believe that everybody has some takeaways, yeah, from today's webinar. Thank you so much, dear all. And again, yeah, so I'm so yeah, I'm so happy to have Mitchell because he's always like open and he always like yeah shares his
Yeah,
all yeah um links to Instagram, to
yeah,
YouTube, to his email, so you can directly message him, which is great. Yeah, thank you so much,
yeah, no
Mitchell.
problem. Always happy to
Yeah,
help.
yeah, dear all, thank you so much. And all those who missed today's webinar, you still can watch them on Facebook. And again, just yeah, we will share today's webinar presentation in our website, yes, through our website very soon. So please, yeah, you can you'll use yeah, the tips that Mitchell shared today. And I believe as soon as you just practice using those tips, your job will be much easier. And also your students, yeah, will be doing more progress in their writing. Thank you so much, dear all, and enjoy your evening. We'll see you, yeah, next week at EWB Thursday. Once again, thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.